Hello, welcome back. This is Mike Smith with another tutorial in Maya. This is the last step to put our table together. I've reopened our tabletop and I'm going to import the table leg. Now before we start, like I said before, and I keep repeating this, make sure your project folder's set. You never know who's used the computer before you. They may have set it to a different project folder. They may have even upset some of the settings. So go back to File, Set Project, locate your project folder, click on it once, and then click on Set. I'll cancel this because I've already done mine. Now we can import the table leg. So go to File, Import, and click on the option box next to that, and we're going to reset the settings in here. So go to Edit, Reset Settings, and then Import, and we can select the table leg. Both of these scenes are nicely saved in our project folder, so it makes it really easy to find. So table leg, import, and that comes in. Now when you have multiple objects in one scene like this, sometimes it can be difficult to actually see their profile. So I find it easier to click on shading below the shelf and then wireframe on shaded, and it just keeps the wireframe on there. It's a bit easier to see the objects when they overlap. So now we can position these. So I'm going to move my tabletop up and I'm going to scale my table leg down. It's a little bit too big. So go to your scale tool and scale from the center, and now we can position that. So to position this, I'm going to go to my move tool, press spacebar and go to the top view, and I'm going to move that straight up to the edge. About there will do. Now press spacebar again, go to either your front or your side view. I'll go to front and I'll position the height. Now it's fine to have objects overlapping slightly like that. You don't want to go too far in, and worst of all, you don't want to leave a gap. So make sure it overlaps just a tiny amount. And then we can press space and go back to perspective. Now, there's two ways of repeating this around. We can either duplicate it by simply, if you're on a PC, it's Control plus D for duplicate, or if you're on a Mac, it's Command plus D for duplicate. Duplicate that, and you'll see in your outliner, you've now got table leg 1, and we can just move that and reposition it. Now, it's an easy way to do it, but it's not very accurate because it might not be completely symmetrical. So I'm going to delete this by pressing backspace, and I'll show you a different method. Now you'll find in my future tutorials, the methods I show you might not be the quickest, and they might not be the simplest, but they're the most accurate and they're the best way to learn. You might find quicker ways for yourself in the future, which is fine, but while you're learning, try to follow these steps. So in this case, I need to duplicate that around the center of the grid. So I need to move the pivot tool, or the pivot point, of that. To do that, hold D on its own, and you'll see the arrows disappear on the move tool, but you have lines, and I can click and drag one of the lines across to the center of the grid. And to be really accurate, press space and go into the top view, and we can zoom right in and hold D and then move that pivot point down. You might even want to zoom in quite a bit more just to be really accurate there. Hold D, put it right in the center of the table. Press space and go back to your perspective view, and you'll see now the pivot point is in the center, well, in line with the center of the grid and the table. What we can do now is go to Edit, click on the option box next to Duplicate Special, and I'm going to reset that because someone else has put some settings in here. Edit, Reset Settings, and now we can work out how many table legs we want and exactly where we want them. If you look in the duplicate special window, you've got lots of different figures here, lots of different attributes. So translate, rotate and scale, and in the left column you've got X, in the centre Y, and in the right hand side Z. So you need to think about where you want to rotate and where you want to position them. Now if you looked at our grid, and if you've noticed down in the bottom left corner of Maya's screen, there's a little key there. And as you move around, that key moves with you. And you can see a tiny X, Y and a Z. So you'll see in this case, X is going left to right, Y is going up and down, and Z is front to back. And as I rotate around, X and Z move quite a lot. Y is always top to bottom. Now, if you're unsure of where you want to rotate this, you could always go to your rotate tool and simply rotate that around. So we don't want X, we don't want Z. If I rotate Y, it rotates around the table. And if you're not sure if it's X, Y or Z, before you move it, in your channel box you rotate X, Y and Z are all 0. But if I rotate one of these, your channel box now tells me there's a value in rotate Y, so I know it's Y that I'm rotating. So I'm just going to undo that by pressing Z. And now I know in my duplicate special options, it's rotate Y that I want to adjust. Now, I want to have 6 legs going around this table. We know that there's 360 degrees in a circle, so there's a bit of maths for you to work out how many degrees you need. If your maths isn't great, don't worry, you will get quicker by practicing this. If you're unsure, just use a calculator to begin with, but try and do it in your head as time goes on to get quicker. Now, I know that 360 divided by 6 is 60, and number of copies, I've already got 1, so I want 5 more to have 6 in total. Now if I click on apply, it automatically puts these legs all the way around our table, so it's completely symmetrical. I can close my duplicate special options window, and if I look at our outliner, I've now got all these different legs here. You could renumber them if you want to. It doesn't really matter at this stage, you'll leave them as they are. And what I'll do now is group everything together, just so it's easier to move and rotate. And what I mean by that is if you select everything and try and rotate it, you'll see everything rotates on its own axis and it kind of goes all over the place and falls apart. To avoid that, select everything, and if you're on your PC, hold Control and G for group. If you're on a Mac, it's Command and G for group. And then everything goes in one group in our outliner. We can now double click on that and title it Table, press enter, and with the group selected, if you try and rotate this, everything rotates together. Okay, you can still select everything individually, and you'll find if you do select everything individually in the group, it won't rotate properly. You have to select the group from the outliner. And you'll notice in the outliner, there's a little plus next to table. If you click on that, you can see all the individual components. You can retitle these if you want to. You can duplicate, delete, anything you want inside that group. And you can even scale the whole group on its own, so you can put it in a different scene if you like. Okay, so hope you've learned something. Keep practicing, there'll be more tutorials up soon. Learn something new and have fun.